The Galactic Council's Grand Hall was the most powerful place in the known universe. It floated in the heart of the Andurian star cluster, a shining ring of metal and light that could be seen from orbit. Every species in the galaxy sent their best diplomats here, beings made of crystal, light, gas, and flesh, and all gathered under one roof to decide the fate of worlds. On this day, all eyes were focused on one name: Earth. The hall was filled with tension. Rows of alien representatives whispered in their own languages, their voices mixing into a strange hum that echoed across the chamber. Holographic screens floated in the air, showing images of destroyed ships, silent colonies, and transmission logs. The Council had summoned Earth to explain what they called unauthorized actions, a phrase that hid a much darker truth. A decade ago, Earth had joined the Galactic Council as a new member world. Many older species saw humans as impulsive and emotional, always running into conflict before thinking. Yet despite their reputation, humanity had learned quickly. They traded, explored, and helped repair broken systems that older civilizations had ignored for centuries. But when Earth's colonies on Mars and Europa were attacked by a group of alien raiders, the galaxy watched in silence. The pirates were supposedly under the protection of a Council member species, the Vorn Dominion. The Council promised to investigate, but weeks turned to months, and no justice came, and then the raid stopped. Entire raider fleets vanished without a trace. That was when the Council grew uneasy. Now, after months of silence, they had called Earth to explain itself. They expected an apology, maybe an excuse, but none of them were prepared for what they were about to hear. The great metal doors of the chamber opened with a soft hiss. A single human stepped inside. She walked calmly, her boots clicking against the polished floor. She was tall, with short black hair and sharp gray eyes that scanned the room like a soldier measuring a battlefield. Her name was Admiral Lena Hart, commander of Earth's defense forces and the official representative chosen to face the Council. She wore a simple navy blue uniform. There were no medals, no golden ranks, only a small silver emblem of Earth on her chest. The other delegates noticed this small detail, and it unsettled them. Humans usually wore bright flags and symbols of pride. This woman wore none. She stopped in the center of the hall and raised her chin slightly. Admiral Lena Hart of Earth, the automated voice of the Council system announced. You stand before the Galactic Council to answer for actions taken without authorization. Do you accept the terms of inquiry? I do, Lena said, her voice clear and even. But before I answer, the Council must see what happened first. High Arbiter Vashran, leader of the Zirathi Dominion, leaned forward in his seat. His species looked insect-like, with tall curved horns and eyes that glowed green under the chamber lights. He was one of the oldest members of the Council and had no patience for human boldness. The Council does not need lectures, Vashran hissed. We need answers. Your fleets destroyed half a dozen settlements under Council protection. You violated... Lena pressed a small button on the device she carried. Instantly, the lights dimmed, and a holographic image filled the center of the chamber. The room fell silent. They saw footage of burning colonies on Mars, destroyed habitats floating above Europa, and civilian distress calls that went unanswered. They saw human children hiding in shelters while alien raiders laughed through their comms. They saw the Council's own messages, full of promises to look into it but never to act. When the last image faded, Lena looked around the room. She spoke softly, but every word carried through the hall. We asked for help. We waited. We followed every law your Council gave us, but the attacks continued. So we did what we had to do. The room erupted in noise. Dozens of alien voices shouted in confusion and anger. Some called her a liar. Others accused her of editing the footage. Only a few sat quietly, thinking deeply. The Arbiter struck his gavel-like staff against the ground. Order. The Council demands an explanation for the destruction of the Vorn Dominion's outer fleets. You are accused of using unregistered weapons and of striking without Council permission. Lena folded her hands behind her back. Permission? She asked calmly. When our people were dying, when our colonies were burning, we asked for that permission. It never came. You took justice into your own hands, Vashran snapped. We defended ourselves, Lena said simply. Her tone was calm, but her words carried the weight of millions who had suffered while the galaxy watched in silence. The Council chamber fell quiet again, uneasy this time. Many of the older species shifted in their seats. The human's calmness was unnerving. No anger, no pride, only certainty. After the hearing adjourned for a break, the delegates gathered in private corners, whispering among themselves. "She's bluffing," said one ambassador. "No one can destroy fleets that size," another muttered. "I heard their ships vanished without battle records," a third whispered. "What if they found something?" Rumors had already begun to spread before Lena even left the room. The Council's intelligence units had no data. The human retaliation had been too clean, too precise. No communication logs, no wreckage, no survivors. The Vorn Dominion had lost 12 fleets in 1 week. To the rest of the galaxy, that was impossible. To humans, it was called efficiency. When the Council resumed, Lena returned to her seat. High Arbiter Vacheron glared at her with open suspicion. "You think your defiance will impress this Council?" he said. "Your world is young. You are not ready for the responsibilities of interstellar order." Lena's gaze met his. "Perhaps the Council should ask itself what kind of order it stands for. Because from where we stand, it looks a lot like silence." The words struck harder than any weapon. Some delegates turned their eyes away. Others looked at her with newfound respect. The representative from the Tholari Empire, a crystalline being that spoke through light pulses, finally broke the silence. "Admiral Hart," it said in a gentle, musical tone. "Are you saying the Council failed to protect your people?" "I'm saying the Council chose not to," Lena replied. "You all saw the reports. You all ignored them. We trusted you, and you betrayed that trust. We learned something from that. We learned that the only ones who will protect humanity are humans." Another ripple of whispers filled the room. The words sounded simple, but they carried an old power, the kind that made even the proudest empires rethink their strength. Vacheron slammed his staff again. "You dare accuse the Council of betrayal?" "I'm not accusing," Lena said. "I'm stating facts." Her calmness infuriated him. "You are reckless. You risked the balance of the galaxy." "The balance?" she echoed. "If that balance depends on letting the innocent die, then maybe it needs to be broken." For a long moment, no one spoke. Even the automated systems paused, as if unsure whether to record what had just been said. Then, slowly, the Arbiter leaned back in his seat. "You humans are dangerous," he said. "Too emotional, too unpredictable. You will learn your place." Lena didn't flinch. "Maybe, but first you'll learn ours." After the session, the Council delayed its decision. Officially, they said they needed more evidence. Unofficially, they were afraid of what humanity had done, afraid of what humanity could do. Outside the chamber, as Lena walked down the silver hallway toward her ship, a smaller delegate caught up with her. It was Envoy Thalen, a thin, amphibious creature from the small world of Saren. Unlike others, Thalen looked genuinely worried. "Admiral Hart," he said quietly, "you should be careful. Many in the Council think Earth has become too bold. They may vote to sanction your planet." Lena stopped and looked at him. "Do you think we're wrong?" Thalen hesitated. "No, I think you did what many of us wish we could do, act. But they won't see it that way." Lena gave a faint smile. "That's fine. We didn't do it for their approval." Thalen studied her, then nodded slowly. "You really mean it? You're not afraid of the Council?" "Why should we be?" Lena said softly. "They forgot what fear feels like. We haven't." And with that, she walked away, leaving Thalen staring after her. Back in the Council chamber, the High Arbiter met privately with his advisors. "This cannot continue," one said. "If humans act without approval, others may follow. They must be taught obedience," said another. But Vacheron sat quietly, thinking. He had seen something in that woman's eyes. Not arrogance, not hatred. Something else. Something older. Resolve. "Prepare an investigation," he said finally. "Send probes into human space. I want to know how they destroyed those fleets." And as his aides hurried away, Vacheron looked out the window at the stars. "Humans," he whispered, "you play a dangerous game." Far across the galaxy, the Earth Defense Fleet orbited quietly around its homeworld, unseen and unbothered. Deep within its command core, hidden from every foreign sensor, hundreds of ships rested in silence, sleek, dark, and perfectly still. Humanity had not spoken of vengeance. They had spoken of protection, but protection, when ignored too long, could become something far stronger. The galaxy had called Earth to judgment, and Earth had come, Not to plead, not to bow, but to remind them all that humanity was no longer a child among the stars. They had learned. They had built. The Galactic Council chamber was quieter than usual. The delegates had returned to their home worlds, but their absence didn't stop the whispers. Every communication channel across the galaxy spoke the same name: Earth. Rumors spread faster than light. Some said humanity had developed secret weapons that erased entire fleets. Others claimed Earth had allied with an unknown power beyond the galaxy. But no one had proof. The truth was locked behind layers of human silence. In the grand office of High Arbiter Vacheron, the leader of the council sat surrounded by holographic screens. Each one showed fragments of reports from probes, diplomats, and spies. None of them offered answers, only more confusion. He leaned back, his green eyes narrowing. "Nothing," he said softly. 12 fleets vanished and not a single data trace remains. His assistant, a floating sphere of light named Kalari, hovered close by. "Perhaps the humans used cloaking technology, Arbiter. They were known to experiment with stealth." Vacheron tapped one of his claws on the metal table. "Stealth cannot erase debris. It cannot silence transmissions. This was something else." Kalari flickered uncertainly. "Shall we request direct access to their defense network?" The Arbiter gave a bitter laugh. "Request? They won't share anything. They've learned the power of secrets. And secrets are what frighten this council the most." He stood, turning toward the large window that looked out over the stars. Humans were supposed to be predictable, full of emotion, full of weakness. But what I saw in Admiral Hart was different. She wasn't angry. She was certain. Meanwhile, on Earth, the world was calm, too calm. Admiral Lena Hart stood on the balcony of the United Earth Command Tower, looking over the glowing cities below. Drones moved through the air like silent birds, and the night sky shimmered with the faint blue lights of orbiting defense platforms. For most humans, life went on as normal. They worked, studied, and laughed, but behind every calm face was quiet pride. Everyone on Earth knew what their world had done. They had defended themselves when no one else would. Lena's assistant, a young officer named Daniel Rhodes, walked up beside her. "The council's still talking," he said, holding a data pad. "They've sent another wave of probes into our borders." "I expected that," Lena replied. "How long before we intercept them?" 2 hours, maybe less," Daniel said. "Do you want them removed?" Lena shook her head. "No, let them come. Let them see what they think they want to see." Daniel hesitated. "You think that's wise?" She smiled faintly. "Wisdom depends on who's watching." 2 hours later, at the edge of human-controlled space, the Council's probes entered the solar system. They were small, fast, and nearly invisible, designed by the best engineers from a dozen species. Their mission was simple: gather information without being detected. But as they crossed Neptune's orbit, something strange happened. Each probe's signal began to distort. Cameras went black, sensors froze, and transmissions stopped mid-sentence. The Council received only fragments: massive energy readings, unidentified satellites, signal interference, then silence. Every single probe disappeared. Back at the Council headquarters, panic spread through the intelligence divisions. The technicians replayed the final images hundreds of times but found nothing. It was as if space itself had swallowed them whole. When Vacheron received the report, he said only one thing: they were watching us. Watching them. The Council convened an emergency meeting. Representatives filled the great chamber once again, their expressions mixed with fear and pride. They were leaders of worlds, each used to control, but Earth was now the one thing they couldn't control. The meeting began with loud arguments. "The humans have violated our authority," shouted a reptilian delegate. "They must be punished before others follow their path." A crystalline being responded calmly. "Punish them? With what?" "The Vorn fleets were stronger than most of ours, and they were erased without a trace." A third voice, deep and rumbling, was added. "Perhaps the humans have done what we all refused to do. They acted with purpose." The chamber erupted again. Only when High Arbiter Vacheron stood did the noise fade. His voice was low but commanding. "Enough. We are not children arguing over toys. This is about balance. If the Council cannot enforce its laws, we lose everything." The room fell silent. He turned to the holographic image of Admiral Lena Hart, who had joined the meeting remotely from Earth. Admiral, he began, we demand access to your military data regarding the disappearance of the Vorn fleets. Lena's image stood tall and composed. With respect, Arbiter, that information is classified. Those operations are closed. Basharan's tone hardened. You refuse a lawful request? I refuse an unlawful one, Lena said simply. The Council failed to act when our colonies were attacked. You had your chance to lead. Now we will lead ourselves. The hall filled with uneasy murmurs. The courage in her voice didn't sound like rebellion. It sounded like confidence. You are walking a dangerous path, Basharan warned. The galaxy does not tolerate rogue worlds. Lena's eyes were calm. Then maybe the galaxy should rethink who the rogue really is. Her image flickered and disappeared, leaving a silence that pressed heavy on everyone in the chamber. That silence stretched into weeks. Across the galaxy, human ships began appearing in unexpected places, not to attack but to help. They cleared pirate-infested routes, repaired damaged space stations, and delivered aid to struggling colonies abandoned by their governments. Everywhere they went, they brought order. And not through force, through action. Other species began to notice. A small trading world named Ryan publicly thanked Earth for saving its people from a food shortage. A mining colony on Vorth Prime signed a direct trade deal with Earth, ignoring Council approval. Slowly, the Council's authority started to weaken, not because of war, but because of comparison. Humanity did what others only discussed. In private, smaller species began to send envoys to Earth. They wanted alliances, trade, and protection. Humanity welcomed them, not with arrogance but with quiet assurance. When news of this reached the Council, Basharan's advisors were alarmed. They are building a network, Kalari said. If they continue, half the galaxy will look to Earth instead of us. Basharan rubbed his temples. They've turned our weakness into their strength. The question is, what do we do about it? One evening, as the Arbiter studied his maps, his console beeped. A secure transmission was coming in, marked from Admiral Lena Hart. He hesitated, then accepted. The hologram appeared, showing Lena sitting calmly in her office. Arbiter, she said, I believe we need to talk. You've caused quite the storm, he replied, coldly. So has your silence, she answered. There was a pause, long enough for both to measure the other. Basharan finally asked, Why are you doing this, Admiral? What do you gain from making the Council look weak? Lena's voice softened slightly. You think we want power? No, we want responsibility. You've had peace for so long that you forgot what it costs. You negotiate while people die. We can't live like that. The Arbiter studied her face. And if your example inspires rebellion, then maybe your system needs to change, she said simply. We're not trying to destroy the Council. We're trying to remind it why it exists. Her words struck him like a quiet truth. For the first time, Basharan said nothing. Before ending the transmission, Lena added, You'll find our actions ruthless, Arbiter. But sometimes ruthlessness is only another name for doing what's right. Then the screen went dark. Days later, the Council's science fleets tried again to reach the outer edge of Earth's territory. This time they made it through. But what they found made them speechless. A network of stations and satellites surrounded the solar system, forming a vast sphere of energy and light. It was beautiful, smooth, elegant, and completely beyond current Council technology. Every probe that entered was scanned, recorded, and then politely escorted out by automated drones carrying the same message. You are entering protected space. Please respect human sovereignty. No threats, no weapons, just confidence. When this footage was shown in the Council, many delegates sat in stunned silence. One whispered, They built this in a single decade? Basharan's eyes darkened. No, he said. They planned this for decades. We just never noticed. Across the galaxy, opinions began to shift. Some feared Earth, but others respected it. The humans had done what no one else dared. They acted without waiting for permission, and their world prospered because of it. Young civilizations started adopting Earth's policies of self-defense and transparency. Even long-standing members of the Council began questioning its authority. The galaxy that had once looked down on humanity was now looking up to it. Basharan realized something unsettling. The humans had not conquered anyone. They had conquered the idea of fear. He looked at the stars again from his window and said softly, So this is what defiance looks like. When it carries a purpose. On Earth, Admiral Hart received a message marked Council Priority. She opened it carefully. It was short, just a single sentence from Vacheron himself. You have changed the balance of the galaxy, Admiral. Be careful what follows. She read it twice, then smiled. Change is what we do best, she whispered. Outside her window, Earth's night sky shimmered with lines of light, ships leaving orbit, heading toward new worlds. They weren't fleets of conquest. They were fleets of conviction. Humanity was no longer waiting for the galaxy's approval. The galaxy had grown restless. In every system, from the bright cores of old empires to the quiet edges of new colonies, one question repeated again and again. What will Earth do next? No one dared to attack them. No one dared to even challenge them openly. Humanity had not declared war, yet their silence was louder than any fleet. At the Galactic Council headquarters, High Arbiter Vacheron stood before a massive screen showing reports from across the galaxy. Trade routes were shifting. Small worlds were forming alliances under human guidance, and Council authority was shrinking faster than anyone had imagined. He turned to his assistant, Kalari, who hovered beside him. Every day their influence grows, he said quietly, and yet they have not fired a single weapon. Kalari's light flickered. Perhaps that is their greatest weapon, Arbiter. They do not conquer through fear. They conquer through trust, Vacheron frowned. Trust can be more dangerous than any weapon. He walked to the window, watching the swirling star clusters. I warned the Council long ago, he continued. We treated the humans like children. Now they are showing us what adults look like. On Earth, Admiral Lena Hart sat in a small meeting room with her officers. The holographic display in front of them showed dozens of star systems marked in blue, all recently stabilized through human assistance. Her officers reported one success after another. Trade on Vorth Prime is stable. Again, Daniel Rhodes said with a proud smile. Their leader has signed a permanent peace agreement. The Saran colonies have upgraded their defense systems using our shared blueprints, another officer added. They insisted on paying us in resources, but we refused. They said they've never met a species that gives without asking anything back. Lena nodded slowly. Good. That's exactly the message we want the galaxy to see. Not our strength, but our purpose. Daniel hesitated before speaking. But Admiral, some worlds are calling it Earth's rise. They think we're building an empire. She looked up at him. Empires take, we build. That's the difference. Weeks passed and a new event shook the galaxy. A distress signal reached the Council from the Outer Ring, a vast border region filled with independent colonies. The message was short and full of fear. Unknown object approaching. Massive. Power readings off the scale. Requesting Council assistance immediately. The Council went into emergency mode. For the first time in decades, all member fleets united. They expected an invasion, maybe a rogue artificial intelligence, maybe a cosmic weapon. High Arbiter Vacheron led the response personally. His flagship, the Honor of Zerath, arrived at the frontier alongside ships from 27 different species. The fleet stretched for hundreds of kilometers, shining under the light of a dying star. Identify the object, Vacheron ordered. His officers worked quickly. It's not a ship, one said in disbelief. It's a structure. The image appeared on the screen. A colossal silver and glass monument moving slowly through the void. Its surface shimmered like water, reflecting the starlight. It's broadcasting something, another officer said. An encoded message, universal frequency. Play it, Vacheron commanded. The speakers filled with a calm, familiar voice. This is a message from Earth, said Admiral Lena Hart. To the Galactic Council, and to all worlds who seek peace. The bridge went silent. Every captain, every officer listened. We remember those who were lost in the attacks on our colonies, her voice continued. This monument carries their names. Every life that could have been saved if the Council had acted sooner. The monument rotated slowly, and its outer panels opened. Thousands of glowing names filled the dark. Names of humans, colonies, and even alien civilians who had died during the raids. We do not seek vengeance, Lena said. We seek accountability. If the Council will not protect the innocent, then humanity will. And we will do so with clarity, not cruelty. Vacheron stood frozen. The entire galaxy was watching the same transmission, now broadcast across every major communication network. The humans had not built a weapon. They had built a message. "This monument will remain at the edge of the Council's territory," Lena said. "It is not a threat. It is a promise, and that peace must be defended, not discussed." When the message ended, silence filled the fleet. No one spoke. Even Vashran, who had argued against humanity for months, felt something heavy settle in his chest. Kalari broke the silence. "Arbiter, what do we do now?" Vashran's eyes stayed on the monument. "We listen." Across the galaxy, the reaction was overwhelming. On thousands of worlds, citizens gathered in public squares to watch the broadcast. The glowing names reflected in their eyes as they stood quietly, some in awe, some in shame. For the first time, many realized what Earth had done, not out of pride, but out of necessity. The small colony of Ryan built its own smaller memorial beside its capital, copying Earth's design. The inscription read, "Peace is not given, it is made." Soon other worlds followed. Memorials appeared everywhere, not to worship Earth, but to honor the idea it represented. The galaxy began to change not because Earth demanded it, but because Earth reminded them that peace had meaning. Back at the council, the delegates were restless again, but this time not with anger. The usual shouting was gone. Instead, they spoke quietly, almost humbly. "We mocked them," one said softly. "We called them reckless," another added. "And yet," said a third, "they did what we never had the courage to do." Vashran sat at the head of the chamber, silent. When the room finally quieted, he spoke. "For centuries we believed peace meant control," he said. "We built laws, we built systems, and we forgot the people those systems were meant to protect." The humans remembered. He paused, looking around at the faces of every delegate. They did not act out of hatred. They acted out of duty, and that duty has reminded us all why we sit in these chairs. There was no vote that day, no debate, but something fundamental shifted in the council's heart. For the first time in living memory, they agreed on something without argument. They would change. Later, Vashran requested a private transmission to Earth. When Lena appeared on the screen, he greeted her not as an enemy, but as an equal. "Admiral Hart," he said, "you have shaken the foundations of the galaxy." Lena smiled faintly. "Sometimes foundations need shaking, Arbiter." He nodded slowly. "You understand what you've done, don't you? You've forced ancient powers to look inward. You've reminded us of our failures." "We didn't want to humiliate the Council," Lena replied. "We wanted to remind it of its promise, to protect, not to rule." Vashran looked at her for a long moment, then said, "You've succeeded. The Council will reform its emergency protocols immediately. There will be no more delays in protection cases." "I'm glad to hear that," Lena said. "Humanity doesn't want to lead the galaxy. We just want a galaxy worth living in." The Arbiter's expression softened. "Perhaps we all do." When the transmission ended, Vashran turned to Kalari and said, "Prepare a public statement. The Council will recognize Earth's actions as justified self-defense, and send an envoy. I will visit Earth myself." Weeks later, the Arbiter's ship arrived above Earth. For the first time in history, the most powerful figure in the galaxy came not to command, but to learn. He was greeted by Admiral Hart at the United Earth Command Tower. The city below sparkled with life. Clean skies, shining buildings, and peaceful crowds waving up at the alien visitors. "It's beautiful," Vashran said quietly. "You've built something rare." "We built it together," Lena replied. "Humanity has many flaws, Arbiter, but when we stand for something, we stand all the way." He looked at her, and for the first time since their first meeting, he smiled. "I believe you," he said. They stood in silence for a while, watching the horizon as ships moved gracefully through the atmosphere. The moment was simple, but it carried the weight of an entire galaxy. Months passed. The Galactic Council restructured itself, creating a new division, the Department of Planetary Defense, led by a joint committee that included humans. Aid protocols were rewritten. Bureaucracy was reduced. Lives were saved. In every corner of the galaxy, the change was visible. Where once there had been hesitation, there was now action. Where once there was fear, there was now hope. And in the middle of it all, floating quietly between the stars, the great human memorial monument drifted, its silver surface reflecting countless suns. The names upon it shone like constellations. At its center was a single line engraved in every galactic language. Peace is not a privilege. It is a duty. Protect it or lose it. Ships from many worlds visited the monument every day. Some came to honor it, some came to understand it. Every visitor left changed. One evening, as Admiral Hart stood aboard her flagship watching the stars, Daniel Rhodes approached her. "Do you think the galaxy has finally learned?" he asked. Lena smiled faintly. "Learning never ends, Daniel. But they've started listening. That's more than I expected." He looked out at the stars with her. "You know, they still call our response ruthless." "Maybe it was," she said. "But sometimes being ruthless just means refusing to give up." The stars reflected in her eyes, countless and bright. "We didn't fight to dominate," she continued softly. "We fought to remind everyone, even ourselves, that humanity still has a heart. And sometimes that's the most powerful weapon of all." In the quiet darkness of space, the monument drifted onward, carrying the light of humanity's message wherever it went. The Galactic Council,